Hello and welcome to the 2017 Oilers TV mock draft presented by Sport Check. Tom Gazzola alongside Bob Stauffer and Jack Michaels from the Oilers Radio Network. We're inside Sport Check's flagship location, guys. We do this every year. It's a good way to get things going in terms of the draft, and this year we have the expansion draft, so the mock draft actually is a three-parter. We're going to go through picks 1 through 6. We'll break it down. And then because the Oilers aren't picking till 22 for the first time since '08, we'll go 22 to 31. And then, of course, we've got the Vegas Golden Knights coming into the NHL this season, and the three of us have done an expansion draft. So you guys ready to do this?
Absolutely, and I'm ready for. I mean, the biggest thing you just said is the fact that the Oilers not only are picking 22nd for the first time since 2008, but they're not picking inside the top 10 for the first time since 2008. So all of those real positives concerning what Edmonton did this season on the ice, and it makes talking about off the ice a little more fun.
Well, absolutely, Jack. And you take a look at we are. I know we're going to do the draft first, but I think the draft is still connected back to that expansion draft as well, because I think there's going to be multiple picks in play, and I do think there's going to be a play on behalf of the Vegas Golden Knights to try to move up from number 6. So we're going to have a lot to talk about here.
All right.
The first thing we should probably talk about it is how he ends up with the number 1. Speaking of doing things every year, does he not have the top pick every year? Do we have any video proof?
I mean, look, I didn't fall off any chairs for a second straight year. Thank you very much. And it's legitimate. The producers picked out of a hat our names, and I got the first pick.
Yeah.
You always complain about this.
Well, the hat, I don't think the video evidence.
Have we ever actually seen this take place?
Exactly. I mean, I've seen the hat and I've seen the name removed, but I don't see like our name going into the hat.
Yeah.
All I see is the hat. But for all we know, there could be 10 names in there.
To me, Jack,
they all have Tom on them.
To me, Jack, it's kind of like a vote that takes place in the state of Florida. You're not really sure you can trust it.
And by the way, how are your invites for this video? I mean, have you ever been invited to the actual drawing?
I'm over for it, but that's typical in my case. I don't know about you.
Let's get to it.
All right.
So the draft order is myself, Bob, then Jack, and we'll go up to pick number 6, which of course is Vegas. But like Bob said, there might be a play there. We're just going to go as is, no trades. So I will begin with the New Jersey Devils, who won the draft lottery. A huge day for them. And I'm going to say that the Devils go with Nico Hischier. He's a flashier type player, in my opinion, from what I've seen between him and Nolan Patrick. I like the way he's creative. He's got quick hands in close. He had a very strong season, was good on the world stage at the World Juniors. And, it sounds like he's emerged towards the end of the year. He was able to stay healthy as opposed to Patrick. So I say the Devils go with a flashier guy in Hischier.
All right, well, I've got Nolan Patrick at number 2, and it's my belief that this is a pick that Vegas desperately would like to move up to, given the Kelly McCrimmon connection. He would know Nolan Patrick the best. McCrimmon's the assistant general manager in Las Vegas. Of course, he was the owner, the general manager, the head coach in Brandon with the Vikings as well. Patrick, a year ago at this time, was a slam dunk number 1, in my opinion. And I do think that Vegas is going to collect the wherewithal to make a significant play here. Oh, but let's not forget that Ron Hextall, where did he play his junior hockey? In Brandon as well. Right. So I think either way, if it's Philadelphia or if it doesn't need to turn out to be Las Vegas, I think Nolan Patrick's going to go number 2 in the draft.
How much worry with the injuries when it comes to Patrick?
There's a few in this year's top 20. I mean, they're like, and I don't mean a few concerning Nolan Patrick, but there's a few guys on the board that didn't finish their seasons and that suffered significant injuries and missed significant time. But I think that's true every year. Ultimately, you've just got to go with your gut. And Nolan Patrick, it's interesting. Had he been born 4 days earlier, he probably would have gone maybe 3 or 4 in last year's draft.
I think he would have gone 3.
So, I mean...
Think about Columbus took Dubois at 3rd. They wanted the center.
Yeah.
He's going 3.
And that's why, Hischier closed very well, but I'm not so sure that, if you're in New Jersey, you don't remember, all right, a year ago at this time, there was a consensus number 1. Or are you going to let some non-structural injuries get in the way of what we truly
I would take him number 1. I'm guessing you would take him number 1 as well. And you made a pretty interesting pick here at number 3 as well.
Yeah, Casey Middlestad. And, it's born out of 2 things. Number 1 is I think Dallas has shown, especially in that market, that they prefer the high-octane offensive type of game. They need a certain blend of charisma and star power on the ice in order to make a go in that market. Bob and I, in the last 7 or 8 years, and Tom, you for that matter as well, we've seen the ebbs and flows of the Stars' attendance. And once they, brought in Tyler Seguin to join Jamie Benn and Dallas started scoring a ton, well, all of a sudden the attendance was there. They were not in contention this year, but they were still scoring a ton of goals, and they still had an audience. There's not many prospects that I think you could say have a chance to be real stars in the league in this year's draft. A lot of solid pros, but maybe not a lot of stars. Casey Middlestat is one who can be a star. He's taken an odd path. Not many would have gone back to high school to try to win a state championship, which he didn't, by the way, lost in the semifinals. But he tore up the USHL. That league is gaining credence. I like Middlestat at 3.
All right, we go to the Colorado Avalanche at 4, and my pick is Gabe Vilardi out of Windsor, of course, Memorial Cup champion. Big, strong guy. I like his hands. He's got good vision. Not only can he finish, he's got a nice ability to find and feather passes to guys. And I liked the way I saw how he had that natural instinct to find the open man. As a bigger body guy, knows how to use his body as well. He's 6'2". There's even some chatter during the Memorial Cup on Twitter amongst some reporters saying, why isn't this guy being considered for the number 1 pick? But at 4, I think Vilardi is a good fit with the Avs, who need all kinds of help right now because we saw what happened with them last season. We keep hearing what's going on with them in their front office, so I think he would be a strong choice for them.
I have him at 3, actually. I like Vilardi that much. Cody Glass for me with Vancouver. This is pretty much, I think this is a slam dunk for the Canucks. They need a center. I don't know if they think that Bo Horvat's going to be a true first-line center. There's a chance Glass can get there. He needs to fill out a bit. The offensive numbers were impressive this year.
And if Glass, doesn't go there, he'll certainly go to the Vegas Golden Knights. And because of the way our mock draft breaks down, I've got to, from a Vegas standpoint, it's a pick that I don't think would suit them. I think, like Bob mentioned, they might try to move up because they're trying to make a splash in the market. It's why I've got them going with a near cap number, a $70 million team, because you're only going to have one chance to make a first impression in Vegas, and they want a high-profile player. But the way you guys have picked, you got to go with Miro Heiskanen. A solid defenseman, certainly a guy you could build a franchise around, not necessarily the guy that's going to, jump out at, on the sports pages of Las Vegas. But, in my mind, on a Finnish team that was a little bit down this year in the World Under-18s, he was impressive. He's that solid presence on the blue line. Most people think he's got 12 to 15 years in the league. And, when you're building a franchise, again, that's not a bad place to start with a top pairing defenseman.
Okay, so we've gone through the top 6. We're going to rifle through 7 through 21 here. Each guy's just going to list off which guy we had before we get to 22, and we'll break down who we think the Oilers are going to go with and why. So I'm at 7. I'm going to go with the Coyotes. They're going to take Michael Rasmussen.
Well, big guy. A lot of power play points for him this year. I'm at 8 with Cale Makar. Buffalo definitely needs another offensive puck moving D-man. Let's not forget who their head coach is, Phil Housley as well. Might be a bit of a fit there. We're talking 2 years down the road here with him.
Speaking of offense, Detroit's starting to lose some offensive players. Some of their prospects have dried up offensively. So why not go with Owen Tippett? 44 goals in 60 games. For me, it comes down to goals.
All right, next up, Florida. I go with Martin Necas, the Czech player with a lot of high-end talent. I think the Panthers, they might lose a pretty good guy that scored 30 goals for them in the expansion draft, so why not restock the shelves there?
LA's got the 11th pick. It's interesting. Some people thought this pick was in play. They would possibly look to make a deal with Vegas to take on one of those bad contracts. That has not come to fruition. Elias Pettersson there, skilled forward.
Nick Suzuki, I have going to Carolina at 12. It seems like the Hurricanes are perpetually challenged to score, and Suzuki again. I'm seduced by the 45 goals he scored last year in Owen Sound.
All right, with Winnipeg, I selected Cal Foote, another big, strong defenseman. They have a lot of big, strong defensemen, so I think he'd fit in nicely there in the peg.
A little bit concerned there, just that high with the footwork for Cal Foote. He's got to work on that a bit. A guy I think was a total wild card here in this draft. The 14th pick, Tampa Bay. I do think Tampa Bay. It's interesting the trade they made to get Sergachev. Timothy Liljegren out of Sweden. This is a player that was top 3 at certain points during the year. He's dropped. I think there's a lot of teams interested to see how far he's going to drop.
I think the Islanders will go with another Finnish sniper in the first round. Laine last year, and this Eli Tolvanen, lit it up in the USHL last year. He's on his way to Boston College. Again, scoring comes to mind with him.
All right, the Flames are up next. I go with the Finn, Juuso Välimäki. Guys, let's rip through these last
Christian Vesalainen would be there at 17 for Toronto. I think the Oilers would have interest in him as well. Very confident young man. Terrible regular season playing against pros in a couple different leagues. Great U18 championship.
Ryan Poling at 18 for the Bruins. Makes a lot of sense. A solid two-way guy with plenty of size, 6'3".
All right, the Sharks go with Nick Hague here on the 19th pick. Bob?
20th, Kailer Yamamoto, and I think Calgary is going to take him at 16, guys, to be honest with you, but he'd be another guy I think Edmonton considers down the road.
21st, I'll go with Pierre-Olivier Joseph. Again, a guy that I'm not sure will last this far, but he's got plenty of filling out to do, but can really move the puck from the back end.
All right, that does it for part one of the 2017 Oilers TV mock draft. Coming up next, the Oilers at 22, and then the rest of the draft. Part two of the 2017 Oilers TV mock draft presented by SportCheck, coming at you from SportCheck's flagship location at West Edmonton Mall. Tom Gazzola, Bob Stauffer, and Jack Michaels as we get set to take a look at who we think the Oilers could pick this draft. Nobody really has a really good idea of what's going to happen outside maybe the top, five guys. So it's...
I'm not even. What kind of movement?
I'm
not sure this NHL draft order that we're going through is going to hold up either.
A lot of question marks. So let's get to pick number 22. All three of us had a chance to pick who we thought the Oilers would be better suited to take. Bob and I, we both took Kailer Yamamoto out of Spokane.
You guys kind of wimped out.
Oh.
You both knew that he wasn't going to be there, or thought that he wasn't going to be there, but you didn't have.
He's a 99-point guy.
Intestinal form. Right.
Yeah.
But you both. What I'm saying is, you didn't really make an Oiler pick. You made the pick you'd like the Oilers to get, but neither of you think he's going to be there.
No, actually, I think Vesalainen.
That's another one.
Christian Vesalainen. Based upon what Keith Gretzky said to us when we were in Buffalo, the fact that the team has some size, they can use some skill and speed in the lineup. We all know Edmonton's much deeper on defense right now, Jack, than they are forwards. So, in my mind, the Oilers, if any one of the following 3 or 4 forwards was there, Christian Vesalainen, Kailer Yamamoto, Eli Tolvanen, guys like that, and then for me, Joshua Norris a little bit later on, I think they'd be pretty happy with one of those guys. And then the wild card is a couple of defensemen. What happens with Liljegren and even Välimäki out of Tri-City? So, but I do think that Yamamoto would make a lot of sense.
Okay, Hotshot, who's your pick?
Well, I mean, like the two of you, I feel like Yamamoto won't be there at 22, so I'm not going to create this little fantasy world that he will be there when I've already picked him before the top.
Actually, I was the one that picked him at 20. Yeah, so it's on me. I made the mistake there.
So I think you've got to take on who's actually available. If we're doing a mock draft and he's already gone, then he's not available. Okay. So I'm going with Elias Anderson, and a little bit of a blend of a hybrid, if you will. A guy who's very strong on the boards. He's somewhat undersized. I mean, he's probably a shade under 6 feet, but he's extremely strong on the puck. He's got some speed. He plays two ways. In short, here's a guy that I think Edmonton can indoctrinate in their organization and ultimately wind up with a third-line center for years to come down the road.
Okay, some talk maybe Cole Lind goes at 22 out of Kelowna, skilled winger there that can put up some numbers. Bob, what do you know about Lind?
To me, I think that's a bit of a reach.
Yeah.
Again, it's funny Jack mentions, maybe they can get a guy in Anderson that turns out long-term into being a third-line center. In my opinion, I think the Oilers might want to take a bit of a swing here offensively and take whatever the best offensive player is left in the draft, which brings us back to Yamamoto. Does he fall that spot again? I don't actually think he will. But and so for me, the backup pick on that would be Josh Norris, who we're about to see here momentarily.
The other thing is you're looking for at 22 a bit of a value pick, and the one thing that jumps out at me with respect to Anderson is at 22 you're getting the third ranked European skater among NHL Central Scouting. That is alluring to me in terms of, it's the same reason why I think someone's going to take a swing on Klim Kostin.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's a guy that, quite frankly, I'm not sure he's, in that conversation for the Oilers. But if he's sitting there at 22, you're thinking, geez, what are we missing? This guy's, a top 3 ranked skater. So some of it has to do with the value you might get at 22.
There is one more wild card in this, and that's Jake Ottinger, the goaltender. I mean,
really?
Would you, if all of the guys you targeted amongst the forwards were gone, and the defensemen, the 2 or 3 defensemen you thought might fall there are gone, do you step up and take a long-term goaltending project? Did pretty well.
What about DiPietro?
I like that DiPietro.
I was really impressed with him at the draft. Part of it was, and Bob, part of it why I think he might be a bit of a riser is he interviews exceptionally well.
Well, he's a confident kid, right?
Yeah. And that struck me, and you don't mind a confident goaltender, right?
No. Okay, let's move on. Let's rifle through 23 through 31. Of course, this year with the Vegas Golden Knights coming into the National Hockey League. So I'm at 23. It's the Arizona Coyotes. I'm going to go with Maxime Comtois. A bit of a down year for him. Offensively, however, he's a good two-way player. I know the John Chayka model is all about stats and numbers, and maybe he fits that mold.
Even those numbers were down this year.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a situation there where, they needed him defensively.
I have Norris at 24 again. I would have time for him with the Oilers at 22 as well. A centerman, I think he would, and we're talking about a guy that's going to develop over time as well.
I have Shane Bowers going to Montreal at 25. Some size. The Canadians are a little undersized up front. Maybe long-term, that's a guy who fits nicely into their lineup.
26, the Chicago Blackhawks. Isaac Ratcliffe, a big, strong forward.
Yeah, speaking about size, back to the goaltender, Ottinger at 27. When you look at St. Louis's, I think there's lots. Here's the thing: you could take these picks 23 to 31.
Yeah,
and you could have picks that would go 23 to 50.
And some would say 10 to 31 is going to be quite a bit smash.
Jack, 28, Ottawa Senators.
This is where I think someone's going to take a swing on Klim Kostin. Another guy, Tom, we've talked about guys whose seasons were ended prematurely due to injury. He had the bum shoulder. He's the number 1 ranked skater among Europeans, according to NHL Central Scouting. Hard not to take a swing at a late first-round pick like Klim Kostin.
Dallas Stars at 29. We mentioned Mike DiPietro. I take Mike DiPietro at 29. I know the Stars have Ben Bishop now, and he's the goalie of now and today and for the foreseeable future, but perhaps DiPietro, who I think kind of reminds me of Curtis Joseph in the way he's using his reflex and never say die attitude.
Yeah.
And I really loved watching Curtis Joseph when he played, so I go with DiPietro there. Maybe he's the goalie of the future.
Robert Thomas with London, basically sort of deployed almost like a second/third line center this year, but I think he is going to end up going in the first round, and he'll spend some time percolating in the minors down in Nashville's organization.
And finally, Pittsburgh, I think. Ultimately, they're not going to be able to keep every one of Connor Sheary, Brian Rust. I think Alexei Niemi doesn't have a lot of size. I think he's soaking wet. He's probably under 150 pounds. But he scores a ton. He's a guy who adjusted very well to the Western Hockey League. Why not? Late first-rounder, skill guy that can easily blend in with any of the above, Crosby, Kessel, Malkin.
All right, that does it for part 2 of the 2017 Oilers TV mock draft. Coming up next, the Vegas Golden Knights. Myself, Bob, and Jack take a swing at the expansion draft. Time now for part 3 of the Oilers TV mock draft. This is where we take a look at the Vegas Golden Knights, the new team to the NHL, and the expansion draft coming up on Wednesday. It's going to be a pretty exciting day down in Vegas. So a lot of hubbub about who would be protected, who wouldn't be protected. Sunday morning, we finally saw the list. Guys, we took a crack each at picking the Vegas Golden Knights. And there's a lot of variables here, so we just went with the standard rules. Do you guys have anything to say before I get into the rules of this?
I know I'm not a candidate to be a GM anytime soon after looking at this team, but we'll give it our best shot.
Do you have anything to say to that?
based on our conversations over the course of the last 7 years together on the road, I can verify that you are not a candidate to be a general manager, but you're stuck next to a guy who thinks he can be. So that tells you everything.
That's the difference. I know I can.
Right.
I'm sitting next to someone who thinks he can.
This is what it's like every day on the media bus and shuttles. All right, I'm going to go through the rules for the expansion draft real quick before we take a look at our rosters. So that teams had options in terms of how many guys they could keep. It could go 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, 1 goalie, or 8 skaters, 1 goalie. First and second year players are exempt. Players missing 60 consecutive games are exempt. Minimum 1 forward, 2 defense, 1 goalie. Forward defense requirements, 40 games played in the last season or 70 in the past 2. Goalie requirements, under contract for 2017-18 or an RFA. So we select 30 players, minimum 14 forwards, 90, 3 goalies plus 4 players. 20 of 30 players must be under contract for 2017-18. Select 1 player from each team. Vegas cannot buy out selected players until summer 2018. Must use 60 to 100% of the 2017-18 salary cap. And, of course, Vegas Golden Knights are revealed June 21st at the NHL Awards. Okay, so we'll go with my team. Some of the highlights here. When I saw that Eric Stahl was left exposed, I know there's circumstances involved, but I thought he would be a good veteran piece to building a team. I know they want to develop their team through the draft, and they talk about not necessarily. I mean, you talk.
He also
about
had a good year last year.
He had a good year. He had a bounce back year, but it's kind of funny because you said that Vegas needs to make a good impression in their first year, but then we're hearing that they want to build the proper way, and that's through the draft. And that, of course, takes time, as we've witnessed here in Edmonton. So I just thought Eric Stahl would be a good fit. James Neal, another strong, solid veteran who had a pretty strong season. Mikhail Grigorenko, Devontae Smith-Pelly, who's bounced around a little bit. Is he ever going to find a true home and become a bona fide NHL player? On the back end, Toby Enstrom out of Winnipeg, Zach Bogosian, Sami Vatanen. A lot of talk. We saw Vatanen in the playoffs. And then the goalies, of course, Marc-Andre Fleury. I went Peter Mrazek and Philip Grubauer. Bob, your Golden Knights.
All right. I think that guys like James Neal and Jonathan Marchessault are going to be players that either get flipped very quickly. I could see Chicago, as an example, giving up a significant piece to get a Marchessault type player at $750,000. So for me, that would be Vegas's pick from Florida. Neal, maybe during the course of the season, they might be able to get a pretty big pick. I put David Perron in the same category. Cody Aiken was drafted by George McPhee when he was the general manager of the Washington Capitals. William Carrier, kind of an underrated guy, slider that I think is going to has a chance for some upside. Maybe put Kirby Reichel in the same category from Buffalo and Toronto, respectively. I have got Josh Bailey on the list from the Islanders because we believe that certain players have been protected. I believe that those 2 players are Brock Nelson and Ryan Strome. Defensively, Vatanen and Dumba are an automatic. There are people that have suggested that they've made a deal.
Explain what you mean by protected with respect to Ryan Strome, because he is on the
He's exposed.
List. Yes.
So what we believe has happened is the New York Islanders have likely offered up their number 1 pick, and that pick was to protect a couple of forwards because they wanted to protect the 5 defensemen. And I believe those 2 forwards were Brock Nelson as well as Ryan Strome. And conversely, I think something similar has happened with Anaheim on defense, where I believe Josh Manson, even though he was exposed, has been protected via trade that the Ducks have made because they didn't have a number 1, and so that means that Sami Vatanen will end up there. I'm going to disagree with you on Eric Stahl altogether because I believe that Matt Dumba could be a guy that would brings a significant return, at least a first-round draft choice, and I think that Vegas is in the acquisition of a first-round draft choice mode, and this is where my team differs from Jack's. Jack's is more money, win net, more right now. Mine is more for the future, and there's one more little thing I want to mention here. It's about Brandon Davidson. Brandon Davidson is represented by David Kay. Okay, David Kay is the father of Michael Kay, who represents Spencer Fu. Spencer Fu is being seriously courted by Vegas. The Vegas Golden Knights have also signed Reed Duke. Ironically enough, also signed by also represented by David Kay. The Kays only have 6 or 7 players that are of that ilk. If you're currying favor with the agency, one way to do it is to bring in Brandon Davidson as well out of Montreal. And oh, by the way, we didn't mention the fact Griffin Reinhart, I do believe, is going to be the player that the Oilers lose in expansion.
I went with Jujhar Khaira.
Yeah, and I went with Griffin Reinhart as well. When you look at my team, it's I tried to go with a bit of a mix, of players that can help the Golden Knights immediately, and then some guys that I think are kind of on the way up. That's why I went Colton Sissons instead of a James Neal, who might flounder a little bit on a team that would be challenged to score goals theoretically in terms of the Vegas Golden Knights, because if you're able to focus on James Neal, sometimes he goes away. When you look defensively, as Bob just kind of mentioned under his breath there, Karl Alzner and Zach Bogosian are kind of my stalwarts to, kind of stem the tide of offensive chances that are bound to come their way. You look for a guy like Matt Calvert to maybe take the next step forward in his career. Maybe some surprises are there. Leadership up front, I'm going with Troy Brouwer, a guy that can, kind of meld a locker room of young players. He just strikes me as that type of guy that some younger players, some players that they haven't even drafted yet.
Tough year in Calgary.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not taking Troy Brouwer for anything other than that locker room presence. If he gives you 15, 20 goals, well, that's a bonus. He's certainly capable of doing it. Matt Dumba, I was kind of the Bob mindset that you could parlay that into some extra picks. I mean, George McPhee has talked about maybe winding up with 15 or so picks. And then obviously when you're talking about an expansion team, you want to be extremely strong in net. I kind of doubled down on goalies a little bit. I drafted 4, thinking that Fleury with Neuver and Condon kind of battling it out for the number 2 hole. Michael Leighton to give you a solid presence in the minors. That's kind of a long-term view in terms of the goaltending.
Michael Leighton, what would that be, his 10th franchise?
Well, he's well-traveled, but he's a pro, and he can teach the American leaguers that are going to be as part of the Vegas organization. He can teach them to be pros, and that's kind of what I was thinking there.
What's it going to be like when we see Vegas for the first time? I mean, it's going to be hard to find out what this team will be before the draft. But
I think the fact that you just take a look at these teams and how different Jack's team is and the money that he's got, and you've taken some swings and some $4 million players and bypassed, to me, a guy in James Neal who can get you back a high-end pick. I think Jack thinks they're going to look to be more competitive than maybe I think they're going to be. Like I think they probably realize they got to build through the draft, get as many picks as possible. That means flipping guys like a Marcia Show, potentially like a Neal. Well, we agree on Dumba, but I don't think they'll have the same range of $4 million forwards slotted in that lineup. And I think
part of it is I've been in that Las Vegas market. I've been in there for 10 years. I just feel like you better do something your first year.
Especially with the NFL coming in a couple of years, right?
I mean, there's just too much going on in Las Vegas. Strong first impression. You're right. I hedged my bets a little bit with some of the younger guys. That's why I went with a Sissons instead of a James Neal, because maybe that's a young player that could be a Vegas Golden Knight for 5 or 6 years and develop into a 25-goal scorer.
I'll throw one more thing at you. We're not necessarily, maybe financially, looking at the cap range of the 2 teams that we've got, but there is the wild card in this is Nolan Patrick, because if they can build through, if they can turn that into the number 1 pick of the draft, and they have that guy in their draft, then that is their star that they're kind of building their young star.
And if you look at see how much money comes off my team after the first year. Like that first year is just so.
What do you think?
It's important to get to 30 wins.
What's Alzner going to sign for?
Well,
he's going to get 5 minimum if he's going to go there.
Yeah, no, there's no question. I mean, I'm looking at it in terms of you need a good first impression, while at the same time in years 2 or 3 start.
In fairness, they'd have 2 stars if they went and got Patrick, because Marc-Andre Fleury's a star in goal, and they would have that.
Absolutely, and they're going to need him.
Any way you look at it, there's a ton of interesting debate when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll find out at the expansion draft on Wednesday night during the NHL Awards. That concludes the Oilers TV mock draft.